Everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you had a good morning. I would like to ask you all to please stand if you're able for the presentation of colors and remain standing until the guard leaves the stage. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting, and air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Woo! Let's give Starfields another round of applause, everyone. Isn't that voice just lovely? Gives me shivers. Thank you, Star. Star is also a member of our board of directors, and we'll talk about them before. Come here, give me a hug. Hold on. Thank you. Okay, welcome again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Lori Fahey, and I'm the CEO and president of the Family Café. So I'd like to welcome you all for being here. I hope your feet are as tired as mine and that you won't mind listening to our dynamic keynote speaker and rest a few minutes. But I do want to let you all know that we are live streaming this session and anything that's in here live on Facebook. So for all of you at home, resting on your couch somewhere, sitting around the table, or even outside, hello, welcome, 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 and we're glad you joined us. Also, so as I said, we have a very special presentation for you all, but before we introduce our keynote speaker, I want to remind you that we will be giving away not one, but 2 Yeti coolers. A red one and a black one, but you must be present to win, and if you do not have your raffle ticket, raise your hand, and someone from the Florida Youth Council will come around and give you your raffle tickets. That's your cue, Youth Council members. See the hands raised? They'll need their tickets. So leave your hands raised until they come over. Again, you must be present to win. And you know, it takes a lot of people to put on an event like this, and we have a lot of people who have shown up this week. Went to try to get the numbers, and because of all the on-site registrations, folks were well into 15,000 plus who have walked through here this past weekend. So thank you for joining us. Thank you. I have a great staff who's sitting over there. Would you all stand up and I'll say who you are? So, Family Cafe staff, Jeremy Countryman, Joe McCann, Sarah Fahey, Tanya Hansen, Paula Roberts. Thank you all so very, 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 very much. Y'all, they're so great to work with every single day. So I have one thing to brag off before I introduce somebody else. I just want you to know, it came up earlier, but I just want to make sure you all hear it. We are the largest cross-disability event in the nation, okay? So I want to again thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for helping us make this event as wonderful it is. We couldn't do it without you. And why we're all here? Because we're all, you know, as we said it last night, we're all in the disco together. And again, that's not the 1970s when I grew up in the John Travolta disco. That means the disability community. So we're all here. So let's all welcome each other to the disco. So right now, I'd like to introduce you to someone who had a little hard time getting here last night due to weather, but he's here now, everyone. The Family Cafe Board of Directors Chair, Jim DeBogren. Jim?
All right, thank you, Lori, and thanks to all of you for being here. Sorry I was a little bit delayed getting here, but I'm here and I'm happy to be here. I did want to go and real quickly introduce one by one our board members. They're volunteers. All of us are volunteers. They work year-round behind the scenes to make this event happen and then all the other good things that Family Cafe is able to do. So going to start with Star Fields, who you just saw. And when I call your name, if you would just stand up, turn around, wave to the crowd so they can see you. Star Fields from Jacksonville, Duval County. Next, longtime board member, Yolanda Herrera from Miami-Dade. All right, Patricia Ann Oglesby from Fort Myers. Okay, Lori, who is our CEO, who you already met. Okay, and just up the street, Jeannie Forthhuber from Seminole County. Jeannie. Have Luann Long. She's living up in Georgia now, but previously, I believe, was down in southwest Florida. We also have, she's not here, but let's give her a round of applause anyway, because she does a lot of great work for us in Tallahassee, Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez. And also from Seminole County, Sharon Rousey. Sharon. Then from Pinellas County, Clearwater, Jonathan Scheinman. I believe Jonathan is not with us as well. He called in sick. from Lakeland, Florida, Tammy Turner. Then also from Miami-Dade, Angelita Salada. I don't believe she's with us. Then originally from the Panhandle, West Florida, Katie Smith. She's up in Georgia now. And then last but not least, from Imperial Polk County, Gil Williams. Yeah. And he's also the resident shutterbug. Guys, there's a lot of volunteers here. But this event would only happen if we had really good sponsors, and certainly one of our main sponsor this year, who's providing both financial assistance to Family Café, but also a literal army of volunteers, is Florida Community Care. Give them a round of applause. And I would like to bring up, I'd like to bring up David Rogers, who is the president of Florida Community Care. And then he's going to introduce the rest of his team and also our keynote speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great. As Jim said, I am David Rogers. I'm the president of Florida Community Care and also of Independent Living Systems, which is our parent company. And we are so very honored to be here with you as a part of the 26th annual Family Café. Just a wonderful experience for all of us. So thank you for letting us join you this year. I want to introduce a couple of other people that are very special to me. Behind me, come here where people can see you, Josefina Carbonell. Josefina was the founding president of Florida Community Care. She was also the assistant secretary for what is now the Federal Administration for Community Living, has been a tireless champion of home and community-based services, spearheading initiatives like Money Follows the Person, the National Caregiver Initiative, and is now our Chief Advocacy Officer. So thank you, Josefina, for your work. And then to my right, my boss, but also my friend, Nestor Plana. Nestor is our chairman and chief executive officer of both Florida Community Care and Independent Living Systems. Nestor has been a pioneer in managed long-term services and supports for a couple of decades, really. It was his vision that really founded over 20 years ago Independent Living Systems, which, as the name implies, is really about providing services and support to help individuals live independently in their own homes and communities. And he had the foresight now about 7 years ago to create Florida Community Care, which is a different kind of managed care plan, and he's really been the inspiration for everything we do. So we really appreciate you, Nestor. Okay. Florida Community Care is a different kind of managed care plan. We're what's called a provider-sponsored or provider service network, which is a provider-owned entity. So we are a provider of home and community-based services, but also operate a Medicaid health plan under contract with the Agency for Healthcare Administration. We are so very, very honored to have been selected by the Agency for Healthcare Administration and the Agency for Persons with Disabilities to be the managed care plan that will operate the new developmentally disabled managed care pilot program that we hope will launch later this year. So we hope, we've got several booths, we've got the Discovery Hub. We hope you stop by and see us if you have any questions. We'd love to meet you and talk with you. But it is my real honor this afternoon to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Stephen Loyd. Dr. Loyd is an internal medicine, addiction medicine physician and the vice president of the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners. He was also the assistant commissioner for substance abuse services in the Tennessee Department of Mental Health in substance abuse services. That was kind of like the Opioid Czar position. He was an original member and is still active on the Treatment of Chronic Pain Guidelines Committee, which is defined kind of treatment standards for providers in the state of Tennessee. He also was named the Advocate for Action by the Office of National Drug Control Policy. That's an office of the President of the United States. In addition to that, do you think that would be enough? But Dr. Loyd has, in addition to serving on multiple drug courts, he has also been currently serving as the Chief Medical Officer for Cedar Recovery in Tennessee, and is current chair of the Tennessee Opioid Abatement Council, appointed by Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. We are very, very happy to welcome Dr. Loyd, welcome him as a physician, as an advocate, and as a person in recovery. So, Dr. Loyd, please come to the stage. We look forward to a conversation with you about opioids and addiction.
Hey,
Dr. Stephen Loyd.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you. I'm intimidated. I don't get intimidated too much, but our sign language folks over to my right are going to be signing while I'm up here. And I've got a little bit of a southern Tennessee drawl, and I hope they can interpret that. So I'm sorry about that for those guys, but Clint, who's up there right now, is just a wonderful guy, and I enjoyed getting to meet him. And thank you all for having me here, and thank you for the introduction. Really, I hate the introduction stuff. The only thing that really matters is that I'm a guy that 20 years ago was going to bed half the nights praying that he wouldn't die and the other half praying that he would die. And because the people that came into my life put me where I am today, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about. But I want to tell you a quick story because they didn't mention it, and some people have actually seen this. There's a Hulu series out there called Dopesick. Has anybody seen it at all? Please, at least one person's seen it. Okay, a few people have seen it. So really about 22 million people have actually seen it. And the reason I bring up Dopesick is because the lead character in the Hulu series Dopesick is played by Michael Keaton. And that in real life is actually me. And so whenever my friend Beth Macy wrote a book called Dopesick, she's from Southwest Virginia, just right outside of Roanoke. She's an investigative reporter, and she wanted to look at what the opioid crisis had done to her community and basically decimated it in Southwest Virginia. And so she wrote a book called Dopesick. It was a New York Times bestseller. It sold about 500, 600,000 copies, which put it on the New York Times bestseller list. And I got to know her as she was writing that book. And about 2 years after that, she called me up and she goes, "Hey, Steve," she said, they want to make my book into a Hulu series. And I said, "Oh, Beth, that's great. You know, what's Hulu?" And because I am a middle-aged white dude, all right? I had no idea what she said. It's a streaming service. And I said, "You're going to have to help me more than that, all right?" And she said, "It's like Netflix." Well, I knew what Netflix was because I think I pay for about 10 Netflix accounts. So at any rate, she said, we're going to fictionalize my book. We're going to rotate it around a doctor who develops his own addiction to the drugs that he's prescribing. And she said, "We would like you to help us with that." And I was thinking, first of all, I grew up in rural East Tennessee, a little town called Jonesboro, Tennessee, up in the corner of the state, right next to Southwest Virginia, Western North Carolina, Eastern Kentucky. Went to public high school. You all hear me talk. How you think I write? All right, I'm not a very good writer. And I was thinking, do you have the right guy? And she said, "Yeah, we think so." So during the pandemic in April, it was the only month Tennessee was shut down, we did it. We got together. The writers and producers were all in Hollywood. Beth was in her home in Roanoke, Virginia, and I was in my home in Nashville, Tennessee. And so we start going through these scenarios around this fictional doctor. I promise you I have a point to this. And all the scenarios they came up with wouldn't work. That's not how a hospital works. That's not how the system works. And finally, our producer, a guy named Danny Strong, and for the young ladies in the room, my daughter loves that I know Danny Strong. Danny was in the Gilmore Girls and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I've never seen any of it. I don't even know what it is, but my daughter seems to be impressed. But at any rate, he looked at me and he said, "Steve, why don't we just use your stories?" The first thing that went through my mind was this: because I'm going to take them to my grave with me. That's why we're not going to use them. And I thought about it, guys, literally for about 5 seconds. And this is what I came up with. What if you had a disease you never saw anybody get better from? What would that be like? What would the hope be like out there if you had something you never saw anybody improve and live a somewhat normal life from? And I said, okay, we'll do it. So I got to be one of the few guys in the world that have had the worst day of his life depicted on a TV screen, and 22 million people have seen it. But that is indeed the case for me. There's a scene in there where I bought pills from one of my patients late at night, which, by the way, is a felony. And watching that scene takes me back to where I was at that point in my life 20 years ago. And it's the whole reason I'm here with you guys today, because I just got here yesterday afternoon. And for the families that allowed me to sit down at your tables and talk to you without knowing who I was, thank you. Yeah, I bet you didn't know I was your speaker this afternoon. But thank you for that, because I wanted to figure out what this organization is about. And I think I'm honing in on it. It's about community and relationship. I mean, I see that. My guess is that very few of you live in the same towns, and you may only see each other when they do this thing once a year. But the community and relationship is pretty freaking overwhelming, to the point that I walked around this morning and took pictures and sent them back home to my friends, telling them what I was and to Google this organization. Because I met Lori in Chicago last year at the National Federation of Families, and that's kind of how I got here today. But I wanted to share that with you about Dopesick, because that's what we're going to talk about today is community and relationship. I'm going to teach you about addiction. I'm going to teach you about the opioid crisis. I'm going to teach you why your kids don't always make the best decisions. All right, don't worry, they'll grow out of it, hopefully. I almost have. I'm 57, so I'm getting close. But I want you to understand that, because the biggest problem that we have in the opioid crisis right now is not effective treatment. It's not access to treatment. It's none of those things. The biggest problem we have is stigma. Stigma. We're treated differently. You come into the emergency department and you've got drug addiction on your diagnosis list. You get treated different than the person who comes in who doesn't have that. And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. And I'm going to show you that there's 2 treatment systems in the United States. And my guess is it's not just for addiction, it's for just about everything. There's a treatment system here for people who have means and money. And then there's this system over here that everybody else gets. And the system over here that everybody else gets is a system that I wasn't familiar with, because it's also a time for me to purge my soul in front of you guys today. Because before I had addiction issues, I thought everybody lived in the world I lived in. I thought everybody went to medical school, everybody drove the cars I drove, everybody lives in the houses I live in, everybody goes on vacation where I do. And guys, I was living in a dream world. And when I started getting involved in this, and I started seeing how people were treated who didn't have the advantages in life that I have, in jails, in hospitals, in places that I had never even thought about before, I had a huge problem. And my problem was this: I couldn't unsee it. Right? I'd already seen it, and I couldn't unsee it. And so I only had a couple of choices. One is I could just be in denial about it and go about my life, but then I couldn't look myself in the mirror. Or 2, I could step into it and try to do something about it. And so for the last 20 years, that's what I've tried to do, and you'll see a little bit of that today. And thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. So I want to talk to you. If you don't remember anything else from my talk today, I want you to remember this. It's a turtle on a fence post, and I would like to tell you this is mine, but it's not. I'm a Tennessean, and I'm a proud Tennessean, regardless of how messed up we get sometimes. I still love being from the great state of Tennessee. And one of our famous people from our state is the author Alex Haley. Alex Haley wrote a book in the 1970s called Roots, traced his family's origins back from enslavement into Africa, where they were kidnapped and brought across the Atlantic and sold into slavery in the United States. And they took the book Roots and they made it into a miniseries in the late 1970s. It aired on ABC TV, I think. And for some reason, my parents let me watch it. I was only 9 years old. I don't know what they were thinking. But it made an impression on me when Kunta Kinte ran and they cut his foot off, and all of the stuff that happened in Roots. And so I've always been proud that Alex Haley is from my state. And really, Roots shocked the world. Right? It's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to see enslavement on your television. And so I really love the work that Alex Haley did. But this is actually Alex Haley's. He lived the last part of his life in East Tennessee, just above Knoxville. And he talks about a turtle on a fence post. What's the one thing you know when you see that picture? Everybody in the room knows it. What is it? That turtle didn't get there by itself. That turtle wasn't walking along and suddenly saw that fence post and shimmied up that fence post, right? Somebody put it there and kept it there. And I would submit to you that that's what all of you all do. You all are the turtle on the fence post for people with disabilities. You are the support system. You are the people that advocates for them. You are their voice. You are the people who sets up systems of care so that they get treated fairly, and they still don't, and you know it, and that's why you're here today. And guys, I do the same thing. I just do it for a little bit different group of people, but I promise you there's a ton of similarities here. They're scary sometimes. So when you see somebody like me standing in front of you, I've been in recovery almost 20 years, and I can tell you this, I did not get here myself. I stepped into a system of care that was designed to put me here. Carly was born, I think, at 24 or 25 weeks. Pretty close, right? Carly stepped into a system of care back then as a preemie that didn't even really exist because her lungs wasn't developed. But she had this mom and these people around her that were going to make sure that she got everything that she could so she could turn out like she did. All right, that's what happened. Lori is part of that turtle on a fence post thing, and Carly is as well. And guys, the reason I tell you that is that we have to have systems of care that are designed to help the people that we care about. There's a lot of holes in them, and politicians don't see these holes because they don't live in it. They don't walk in an emergency room with their child who has a disability and see how that child is treated differently than the other children, or shown the door, or written off a diagnosis because of this or that, because of their disability. And those are the things that we absolutely have to improve. And I'm so glad that you guys are doing that, because I spent most of the night last night learning about you. So anybody know what this number is? 107,622. Anybody got an idea? It's the number of Americans that died of drug overdoses in the year 2020. Now, we've got updated data, but I'm going to use 2020 data because I'm going to tell you a story here in a little while, and one of the 107,622 is in my story, and I don't want to forget her. So let me put that in perspective to you. That's 107,622 people a year die in the United States secondary to drug overdoses. That's equivalent to a 747 airplane, fully loaded, crashing and burning, killing everybody on board every 36 hours around the clock for an entire year. And I dare say if that was the case, there's not a one of you that would step on an airplane. I know I wouldn't, right? But how come we don't know this number? Because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in isolation. It happens in motel rooms. It happens in kids' bedrooms that they grew up in. And the families don't want to know, don't want people outside of it to know, right? And so families go on suffering. So addiction is a disease, guys, of the entire family. It just doesn't affect the person who is, who has the addiction itself. I let myself go down the rabbit hole of watching some of the coverage of Hunter Biden this past week. And Hunter has a long history of addiction that he struggled with. And to see what happened with them putting his family members on trial, basically, and putting him up there and running him through that, I can't imagine what that felt like for Hunter. And it's no politics involved. This is a guy that has the same disease I do. I don't care if he's a Democrat, Republican, communist. I don't care at all. I just know what that must have been like for him to sit there and having to listen to that and seeing the effect that it had on his family. Addiction affects the entire family. And most of the time, the thing that keeps them isolated is shame. And I want to try to take care of some of that shame today because I'm going to teach you about addiction. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm only going to be with you for less than an hour. But I promise you this, at the end of this hour, you're going to know more about addiction than the doctors that live in your community. I will stake my life on it, and I don't care if you live right next to the medical school in Tallahassee, okay? Because the doctors there hardly know anything about addiction at all. And if you don't believe it, just look at the way they write some of the medications they write. I think I can prove it. So the system in the United States right now is designed perfectly to get the results that it gets, and that's my slide. And I think I only have one other slide that has words on it, so I think you all will like that. All right, so I teach addiction like this, guys. Addiction is a slot machine. All right, I get a slot machine. When the 3 sevens come down on the pay line, that's when the money comes out the bottom, okay? So addiction is genetics, trauma, and opportunity. Those are my 3 sevens. For those of you in the room that have training, or maybe you're social workers or have a psychology background, it's known as the biopsychosocial model, and probably a lot of people in the room have heard of BPSs, but I can't teach a biopsychosocial model. I can darn sure teach a slot machine. The first 7 is genetics, okay? 60% of addiction is inherited. 1 gene from mom, 1 from dad. Okay, you can't do anything about that. I said 60%, not 100%. That means you can inherit it and it not come to fruition, right? What are the things that makes it protective if you've got the gene to not have the disease? We'll talk a little bit about that. The second 7 is the psycho part of the biopsychosocial model. What kind of household did you grow up in? Okay, now don't get me wrong here. There's not a single person in this room that came out of a normal household because they don't exist, all right? There's no such thing. But some of us came out of places that are worse than others. Some of us came out of places where there's physical, sexual, emotional abuse, so-called adverse childhood experiences. And I want to talk about that, but when I'm talking about it, I don't want you to be misled, okay? I am a survivor of physical and sexual abuse as a child. My mother was physically abusive, and I'm not talking about spankings. I'm talking about beatings, okay? Belts, belt buckles, tobacco sticks, baseball bats, ends of shotguns and rifles, syrup bottles. If you can think of it, I promise you, me and my sister have been hit with it. Sexual abuse. My favorite uncle started to molest me when I was around 5. When I got older, it got much worse. It stopped when I got big enough to fight for myself, right? And those are adverse childhood experiences which led to my addiction or helped lead to my addiction. But here's the key, guys. I am not my ACEs score. I am more than that. That is what happened to me, but it certainly doesn't get to dictate how my life goes now. And the only way that that can happen is access to quality health care. I got help with that. If you ever told me that I would be standing in Orlando, Florida with this many people that I don't know who they are, okay, and I'm going to talk to them about my physical and sexual abuse, you have lost your mind. That is never going to happen. How did that happen? Because I had world-class care. I got help with the adverse childhood experiences. They still happened. They didn't go back in time and make them not happen. But what they did do is they did help me see that they're not the boogeyman in the closet. Okay, they allowed me to start to live my life and start to help others. And so I want to tell you about that because I help pregnant women that shoot heroin. Okay? I always hate it when I get on an airplane and you sit down and the person next to you goes, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I'm a doctor." Right? And most of the time I can get away with that, but you know what question comes next? What is it? What kind of doctor are you? Well, I help women who are pregnant and shooting heroin. That's usually the end of the conversation, right? I mean, it just stops. Nobody wants to know anymore, right? And if you told me I couldn't do that, I'd quit being a doctor. It's the most fun I've ever had in my life. My women are resilient. My women are strong. Most people don't deserve to carry the boots of the women that I help. And one of the things that kills me when I'm helping them is I have this thing inside of me that kills me, and it's this. I got help with my trauma when I was an adult. I was nearly 50 years old by the time I got help with the sexual abuse. It cost me about $60,000 cash. No insurance, cash money. And I hate knowing it exists. Why do I hate knowing it exists? Because my girls will never have access to it. They will never get that because it might as well be $60 million instead of $60,000. So when I'm advocating for help, I'm talking about advocating for quality help for all individuals, regardless of their ability to pay. So that's the second 7, adverse childhood experience. The third 7 is just the social opportunity. What's widely available and socially acceptable? What's the most widely available, socially acceptable substance people struggle with? What is it? Everybody knows you can buy it in this hotel. Matter of fact, you could buy it in the market 1 floor up. Alcohol, right? So how in the world did heroin and drugs like fentanyl become widely available and socially acceptable? And guys, that happened as a pharmaceutical industry in the late 1980s and early 1990s that marketed the drug OxyContin and downplayed the safety profile and the safety risk of addiction and unleashed an incredibly powerful and addictive substance on a population that was already trauma exposed. And it's how we got where we are today. So I'll teach you about the brain a little bit. So I don't have a pointer, and I can't do it, so I'll have to do the best here. And I wear a hat, guys, because I'm bald. And I'm still self-conscious, and I've been bald about 5 years now. At some point, I'll get over it. So I want to teach you about the brain here a little bit. So I want you to imagine if where my 2 fingers meet, okay? I'll turn sideways, cut me this way, drop this half of my body off. We're looking in the right side of my brain. Buried deep within there is our limbic system. It's the part of our brain where we feel pleasure, right? I've watched you all here. I've watched you be around and be involved in these events. You guys are having fun. And what's happening when you're having fun is your body makes its own heroin. It makes its own oxycodone. It makes its own hydrocodone. They're called endorphins and enkephalins. And those endorphins and enkephalins in this part of your brain that I just showed you about, our limbic system, they attach to the opioid receptors, same receptor that heroin attaches to, leads to the downstream release of dopamine, makes you all feel good. Okay? It's the same chemical that's released when you eat a big meal. How do you feel after you eat a big meal? Fat, happy, and satisfied, and you want to go to sleep. Okay, that's how you feel. That is a limbic system function. It's made up of a bunch of different structures. We're going to call it go. Okay, I understand go. Now, the other part of the brain I want to talk about is if you can imagine the part of my brain that's covered by my hand right here. Okay, the frontal lobe of my brain, we're going to call it stop. So I'm going to teach you about go and stop here real quick. So the go part of our brain has two big functions. One, it's responsible for your will and your desire to live, okay? And number two, it's responsible for species going forward in time. So let's talk about will and desire to live real quick. What would you do to save your own life right now? I'll tell you, you're capable of anything, okay? If I got rid of all the food and water in this building, we taped this place off, and we sit here and looked at each other day after day after day, we're going to do a couple of things. Number one, we're going to drink urine. It will happen. Okay? It will happen. It is a survival instinct. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to eyeball each other to see who's the weakest. And that one's the one that's getting eaten first, and then we're going to go down the line. Guys, that's how strong your desire and your will to live is. When you have some addiction, that desire and will to live is replaced by whatever the drug is. And here's the kicker. The person's craving for that drug is 10 times stronger than your cravings are for food when you're hungry and water when you're thirsty. And I want you to think about that. Next time you see somebody who's addicted, says, oh, why don't they just put it down? Why don't they just stop? I agree. They need to. Good luck. Because I would ask you to put down food. How long can you go without eating? Maybe a day, 2 days. What's it look like at day 3? Right? Very, very hard. Their desire for that drug is stronger than your desire is for food by 10-fold. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's the first thing to overcome. The second thing is our species going forward in time. What does our species have to do to go forward in time? Number one, got to live to be reproductive age. Number two, got to have sex. If we do that over a big enough period of time, long enough people, then our species will go forward in time. So in order to live to be reproductive age, we must eat and drink. Does eating and drinking feel good? Yes, if every time you ate or drank, you threw your toenails up, you'd stop eating and drinking, and our species would die. But eating and drinking feels good. So what happens, it's after lunch right now, so it's not going to be appropriate, but if it was an hour earlier, you all would have been looking at your watches knowing it's about noon. If you didn't eat breakfast this morning, your body will tell you it's time to eat. You get a little bit of sweat on your forearm. You get that empty feeling in the pit of your stomach. There's even an emotion attached to it. What's that emotion? You all know, hangry, right? You're hangry. So you have all these things that are telling you it's time to eat. Your brain remembers the last time you felt like this and when you ate. And if I wanted to make it worse for you, I'd blow the food smell in here and watch you all circle a table out there like vultures. Right? That's what I'd do. That's how it works. You take a couple of bites of food, your body makes those same endorphins and enkephalins attached to the opioid receptors, downstream release of dopamine. Everybody in here is fat, happy, and satisfied. Right? That's how it works. Why? Because whatever made us to repeat that process until we get sexually reproductive age, then we have sex, then our species goes forward in time. Everybody good with that? That is Neuroscience 101, and now you're all ready for med school. I promise. All right? So here's the deal. Here's the deal, guys. Those two parts of your brain, actually, that's all about pleasure. Let me go back. That's all about pleasure. That's the go system. The stop system, this part of your brain, is about insight, judgment, and empathy, okay? So everybody agrees that food, water are good things, right? Can you think of an instance where food or water may not be a good thing? Anybody ever tried to lose weight? Yeah, how's that go? All right, that's terrible. I tried every diet known to man. Up until about 10 years ago, I weighed 250 pounds. I tried every diet out there. All meat, no meat, all carbs, no carbs. I was a vegetarian one afternoon for about 30 minutes. I did it all. I lost weight with every one of them, but then I put it right back on. So 10 years ago, I decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to work out, and I'm going to watch what I eat. And I think I'll weigh about $184 this morning, 85, somewhere in there, okay? So every day I wake up, I go to this little gym called Orange Theory, which is where I live, and they're all over the country, so even when I'm out of town, I can go. I work out for an hour, burn about 800 calories. On my way home, I pass a Krispy Kreme donut. I love Krispy Kreme donuts. I told my wife on my deathbed, I want you to pull the tube beside, just stuff it down in here. All right, that and a dip of Copenhagen, because I hadn't had one of those in 20 years either. I feel pretty good about the donuts. I'm not sure she's going to go for the Copenhagen. But at any rate, so guys, that's what happens to me. When I'm driving by that place, what's the reward system of my brain telling me about Krispy Kreme? Go in there. It's good for you. I can see it in my mind's eye right now. But I have a fully functioning frontal lobe. And my frontal lobe of my brain is about insight and judgment. And it says, hang on a second, Steve. Your goal is to lose weight and get in better shape. Each one of those Krispy Kreme donuts has 220 calories and 20 grams of fat. Unfortunately, that's true. Not much of a problem. I'm going to have 4. Okay? So that's 880 calories, 80 grams of fat. What happened to my workout this morning? I wasted it. Why do I tell you that? Guys, I tell you that because it's so important to understand what I'm getting ready to teach you. Right? These two areas of my brain are yin and yang. One is about pleasure, the other is about insight and judgment, and they work together. So before I pull into that Krispy Kreme, the stop part of my brain tells me those things, reminds me of my goal, and guess what? I don't pull into the Krispy Kreme, I drive by it. The reason I tell you all that is because you all make decisions like that all day long, every day. I just use food to show you. You look at a series of choices, you pick the one that brings you the most amount of pleasure with the least amount of consequence, and that's a function of those two areas of your brain. Now, how do I know this is right? And you all are going to know it's right here in a second, because of what Krispy Kreme does. What does Krispy Kreme do? Number one, they blow the donut smell out in the street. Why do they do that? They're trying to overcome this part of my brain by going to the lizard part of my brain to get me to come in and eat their donuts. And if that fails, they have one last line of defense, and everybody in the room knows what it is. What is it? That stupid hot donuts now sign. So the next thing I know, I'm there talking to the person, buying the milk and having 4 donuts and wasting my workout. And I use that because it's funny, but everybody in the room relates to it. Okay, here's the deal. These two areas of our brain are not neurologically connected until we're 23 years old if we're a woman and 25 years old if we're a man. So when you're sitting around and your teenagers making decisions and it's driving you nuts, I want you to remember, they're not fully developed from a brain standpoint, right? They don't. When your kid gets their driver's license, the thing you're worried about is them going out in a wreck because they don't realize they can die and you do. Guys, this is how it works. Now, hang in there. Both of my kids are past 23 and 25, and I can talk to them now. That's a good thing, right? Kids are going to make bad decisions, but normal brain development will bring them around. Steve, what does that have to do with addiction? Those connections between those two areas of your brain are arrested in development at time of first drug use. So, Carly, I know you now. You're in front of me, so you're going to be my patient. Carly comes into me, and she's using heroin, okay? She's using heroin, and I'm asking her questions, and she's giving me answers like a 15-year-old. And how old are you, Carly? 30. So Carly's 35 years old. 30. Carly's 30 years old. She's giving me answers like a 15-year-old. I stop her. I say, Carly, tell me how you were when you first started using drugs. Now, I know Carly doesn't use drugs. I'm just using her as my example. She says, Dr. Loyd, I was 13. So I know from a brain development standpoint that I'm dealing with a 13-year-old, and I can do that. And it's really important that we understand that. So if we look at this next series of slides, I want to show you how come we're killing kids in the United States right now. These are PET scans of brains. All PET scans do is look and see where radio labeled sugar goes. All the cells in your body work on sugar one form or another. And if you had a way to attach a radio label to a sugar molecule, you stuck it in somebody, you light them up, you can see what cells are working. Top row of brains, normal brains. Okay, normal brains. Second row of brains are brains that have been detoxed off of drugs for 10 days. So I bring my patient in, I detox them off the drug for 10 days. I said, okay, you're good to go, and I send them out the door. Look at that second row of brains and look at the top part of brain. Do you see any yellow or red in those areas? You don't, because those areas of the brain are not functioning, and that's the part of the brain that gives insight and judgment. How long does my patient last when I send them back out into the world? How long does it take them to use drugs again? Sometimes even less than that, about 5 minutes. And guys, until we understand what's driving addiction, until we understand the brain science behind it, we're going to keep bringing kids in, treating them for 5 days, 7 days, and sending them back out into the world to die. And we do it all the time. Now, who determines how long people get to stay? You're going to love this one. Who determines how long you get to stay? Your insurance company. It doesn't have to do with the doctor. It has everything to do with what the insurance company will pay for, and then we send kids right into the world to die based on it, and I'm tired of watching it. Look at that bottom row of brains. These are brains that have been off of drugs for 100 days. Look what's starting to come back. Look, it's starting to come back. How long does it take to come fully back online? 2 years. It takes 2 years. And so the treatment system that we're putting kids into, guys, isn't designed to get them better. It's designed for the insurance companies to pay and for them to die. And when they step into that system of care, I lose my patience, and I can't do that anymore. I'm going to go out and advocate for them because I'm tired of having kids 21, 22, 19 years old die, right? If anybody recognizes this guy, it's one of my medical heroes, Vincent Felitti. Felitti was a doctor in California who treated weight loss, treated overweight women, mainly 500 and 600 pounds in the 1980s. Some of them would lose the weight, put it back on. Some of them would lose the weight, not put it back on. He was interested in the difference between the two groups, and he thought it had something to do with trauma. And so he made up these 10 questions around trauma, and one particular question got his attention, and it was this one. How much did you weigh the first time that you had sex? And the answers that he got were in the 40 to 50 pound range, and he realized he had asked the wrong question. What question should he have asked? How old were you? These women were young women who were being sexually abused within their own family. Out of that, something called the ACEs study was born, Adverse Childhood Experiences. So when your ACEs score gets to 4 or above, your risk of just about everything goes almost straight up. Behavioral issues, mental health issues, real diseases like hypertension, diabetes. By the way, I said that tongue in cheek. Real diseases like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, right? And so we know, I think it's the most important study ever done in the history of medicine, only behind hand washing. And so out of that came the ACEs study. And guys, we will not get anywhere in the United States treating addiction or a lot of other diseases if we don't pay particular attention to getting people help with their adverse childhood experiences and their abuse. And I can tell you that I didn't get help with it until I'd already been in recovery for double-digit years because I wasn't going to tell anybody about the sexual abuse. Nobody know that. And by not doing so, I started having PTSD symptoms and wound up on the edge of my bed 10 years into recovery with no chemicals in my body with a loaded .45 pointed at my right temple. And by the grace of God, I didn't squeeze the trigger and I got help. And that's where I learned that there is help for adverse childhood experiences. There are people out there that can help you with extreme trauma, no matter how bad it is, and that it costs a lot of money and that most of the people out there will never have access to it. And so that's the work of Felitti. When I saw this, it really solidified things for me, and I'm going to explain it the best I can. This is biochemistry, and I hate biochemistry, but I get it. When you have somebody that's under chronic stress, it tells the pituitary gland in the middle of your brain to make something called ACTH. ACTH talks to your adrenal glands, which sits on top of your kidneys, and your adrenal glands produce something called cortisol. Most people in this room have heard of cortisol. It's the stress hormone. Stress hormone eats dopamine. What makes you all feel good today? Those of you that are feeling really good today, why are you feeling good in your brain? It's dopamine. When you're hanging out with your kids, and I've watched multiples of you out here with your kids doing things, taking them places, that feeling you have, that's dopamine. What if you were walking around with a chronically suppressed level of dopamine? I use Tigger and Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Tigger's here, Eeyore's here. You're walking around like this, and then you find something out there that raises it, and you feel normal. And guys, that's really what happens in addiction. You find the thing out there that makes you feel normal. Talk to somebody who's struggling with addiction and ask them, hey, what'd you feel like the first time you ever used? They're going to say, it gave me energy or it made me feel normal. And I think this is the reason. And then last but not least, the third 7 is just the social opportunity. The pharmaceutical industry downplayed the risk of their addictive medication, and they cited studies in the New England Journal of Medicine. This is the study. And what you'll notice right off the bat, it's not a study, it's a letter to the editor. It was written in 1980. It is not medical literature. It is not proof of anything. It's just some doctors up in Massachusetts that said we had about 11,000 people in our hospital that we gave a pain medication while they were in the hospital. We followed them when they were out. Only 2 of them became addicted. Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, cited that as the risk of addiction being less than 1%. And it's a farce, and it's a fraud, and it's why they're bankrupt and paying money, and it's why millions of Americans, unfortunately, have died. So I'm going to take the story of addiction, and now I'm going to weave it into a system of care, and I'm still going to be done on time, I promise. Because what you all are working for here, and what Lori, I think, started this organization for, is to build a system of care that no matter where you touch it, you get the help that's right for you. I'm pretty sure that's it. I haven't talked to her about it, but I bet it. And guys, it's about a system of care. And if you've got a system of care that's not designed to do that, you're going to do more harm than good, and you're going to kill people. And I'll bet you there's been members of this organization that have been damaged by the system of care that they stepped into in their hometowns. I'll guarantee it. And guys, I deal with the same thing. This is the toughest patient that I've ever had on the screen. Her name is Brooke Sargent. Brooke is from Central Ohio. When this picture was taken, she was 25 years old. She had just found out she was 8 weeks pregnant, and she was using IV heroin and IV fentanyl. She's using one other drug. Does anybody else know what that drug is just by looking at her? There we go. I knew this audience would know. It's methamphetamine, right? The pick marks on her face. Methamphetamine's made out of stuff you get at Lowe's and Home Depot. It gets deposited on your skin. It itches. You pick at it. That's where it comes from. Brooke is a certified welder. Think about that, a 25-year-old woman, certified welder. She is the toughest patient that I've ever had. And guys, I'm responsible today for the ongoing care of about 3,000 patients, and I'll guarantee you I've treated over 20,000 in my career. Brooke's the toughest one. I knew her for 2 weeks before she called me anything other than MFer. And I'm sorry, it's a family audience, and I won't use the word, but she wasn't using the initials. She was tough. I walked in about 2 weeks after she had been there, and I said, "Hey, Brooke, how you doing this morning?" She goes, "I'm doing well, Dr. Loyd." And I started smiling. She calls me Dr. Loyd, not the other word, right? Why was she doing that? She wanted to see if I was going to run. Can I make him run? You can't make me run. I've been called way worse than that, okay? And Brooke and I became friends. Brooke is 8 weeks pregnant. Pregnancy's 40 weeks long. Yeah, she tells her mom that she's using. She tells her mom that she's pregnant. They get on the internet. They Google doctors who will help her. My name pops up. I met Brooke 7 hours after this photo was taken. Now, the one thing you can do with pregnant women is you can scare the heck out of insurance companies with them. So I scared the insurance company to death every time I talked to them, and I got to keep Brooke for a long time. So we had her in sober living. She was doing really well. She's 38 weeks pregnant here, so 8 weeks to 38 weeks, and this is her, and I love this picture of her. But this is the day she told me she wanted to go back to Ohio. What's back in Ohio? Something called a baby daddy. Now, you all know where, I already told you a little bit. I didn't know what the heck a baby daddy was. I had to look it up in Urban Dictionary. But I know now, just so you know. And Brooke turned 26. What happens when you turn 26? You lose mom and dad's insurance. So now, not only was she leaving me, guys, I'm an average doctor at best, but I care deeply. I promise you that. I'm high on the care factor. I promise you. I got a lot of other faults. I'm not as smart as some of the doctors out there, but I do care. And I care deeply about Brooke. She didn't have me back in Ohio. She had a doctor who wasn't going to take her Medicaid because she's going to have to go on Medicaid. And so she's going to have to pay him cash. She's got 2 felonies on her record for possession with intent to resell, only she wasn't a dope dealer. The amount she was using every day was enough to get possession for intent to resell, and she can only get a job making minimum wage. And so Brooke is really going to struggle. I love this picture of her. She sent it to me right after the birth of her daughter, Ava, right? That's pretty good, isn't it? So I want you, I don't know if I can make this thing go backwards or not. Can you guys help me if I mess this up? I can't make it go backwards. Sorry. At any rate, remember that first picture I showed you? There we go. From there to there. All right. That's only 32 weeks. It's a little more than 6 months, right? I get to watch that all the time. When we have systems of care that are designed to help people, these are the results that we can get. And when we don't have those systems of care, I'm going to show you what happens. Because Brooke was struggling. She was having to take all the money she was earning from a minimum wage job in order to pay a doctor who was only writing her medication and not doing anything for her underlying behavioral health issues and not doing anything for her underlying trauma. So let's leave Brooke right there and let's go to this picture. Does anybody recognize the guy on the right? That's actually me, believe it or not. And every time I see that picture and that head of hair I have this deep sense of loss inside of me. That's graduation from medical school back in East Tennessee back on the day that I graduated. And on this day, my friends went to the far corners of the earth. And so all through medical school, I had this group of people around me that made me a turtle on a fence post. I never wanted them to see me drunk or using drugs. And so I didn't use the whole time in medical school because they elected me their class president, and I couldn't embarrass them. But then this day happened, and boom, they were all gone, and my support system was gone. I was drinking within a month, and I was using drugs within about 6 months. This picture looks great on the outside, a young doctor with his little family. That's my son Heath, my daughter Haley, my wife Karen, and me. I'm a huge University of Tennessee fan. And we did beat Florida State in baseball last night, but I won't mention that. I had to work it in somewhere. At any rate, we're headed to Knoxville to a football game, and that picture looks great on the outside, a young doctor with his family. But if you look closely at the right pocket of my pants, you'll see a bulge like this one today. This one today is my microphone. But that one's not a microphone. It's my wallet. It's not my keys. What is it? It's a bottle of pills. And I look at that picture, and I love that picture, seeing my son, who's now 30. He's actually close to Carly's age. My daughter, who's 27. And I know the truth behind it. You can pick drug addiction out of that first picture of Brooke in her car. I guarantee it. I bet you can't pick it out of that picture. And guys, I wasn't living underneath a bridge. I was a full-blown doctor taking care of people in the medical ICU, medical step-down units every single day. Nobody knew. I love kids. It's one of the reasons I've liked being here for the past day. There is a lot of kids here, right? Kids bring the deal, right? They bring the energy. They bring the heat, and I love it. And so whenever we go to the beach, all the parents are sitting up underneath the umbrellas drinking. I'm the dude in the water with the kids. Still am when I'm 57. Still do it, only now it's their kids. And so we were not far from here. We were at Disney back when this picture was taken. And my son and daughter are in that picture. My niece and nephew are in that picture. My 2 goddaughters are in that picture. 4 of them are married. 2 of them have their own kids now. And there's part of me that hates looking at that picture every time I show it. And it's this. It's October. It's nighttime. It's not stiflingly hot in Orlando in October. It's actually rather nice. And I'm shiny. Why am I shiny? Because I'm dope sick. I'm dope sick in that picture. And I look at it and it breaks my heart. I got quality help. I'm a doctor. I stepped into a system of care that was designed to put me here. The citizens of the state of Tennessee paid for my medical education through tax dollars. I cost too much to replace. When I get in trouble, I get to get help and put back in my life because it costs too much to replace me. Other people get kicked to the curb because they're so-called expendable and treated less than. My life did nothing but go up after I got help. I led our residency program. I became the chief of medicine at my hospital. A few years ago, I got a registered letter in the mail from our governor. Nothing ever good comes in a registered letter, all right? This one did. Our governor of Tennessee, Bill Lee, appointed me to the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners. I'm now the vice president. There I am on the first row. And I tell you that to tell you for this reason. I'm a turtle on a fence post. That picture is not an accident. I didn't get lucky. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I stepped into a system of care that was designed to put me there. I'm sorry, Carly, I'm going to use you again. I watched Carly interviewing people outside here earlier today. I was amazed because I'd read about her last night. I was amazed watching her. Where she is today is a result of the work that's been done to make sure she gets the care that she needs going forward. That's the system of care that we're talking about, guys. It's the same no matter if we're talking about disabilities, we're talking about addiction, we're talking about behavioral mental health issues. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's not an accident that she's where she is today. It's not an accident I'm where I am today. How many people get to step into this same system? That's our goal, and those are the questions that the politicians need to be answering for us, at least for me. So you saw how I turned out and where I am today. I'm here in front of you all. What happened to my patient, Brooke? Brooke started to struggle. She relapsed. She got put in jail. And while she was in jail, somebody with no medical training at all, probably a high school education, if that, stopped all of her medications because they said, quote, she didn't need them. And then after 30 days, when she got out, they didn't hook her back up with anybody that could help her, nobody from the behavioral health field, nobody from the addiction field. And on the morning of December 13th, 2020, I think it was a Sunday morning, I'm pretty sure it was, my phone rang early in the morning, and it was Brooke's mom, Angie. And she said, Steve, I found Brooke cold and blue in her bed this morning. Brooke died of an acute overdose of heroin and fentanyl. And she died because she stepped into a system of care that was designed to kill her. She's one of the 107, 622. And guys, this happens every day. It's happening in the state of Florida today, guarantee it. It'll happen multiple times today in hospitals right here. I mean, Orlando is one of the medical hubs of the United States. And I will guarantee you there will be people today that will be kicked out of institutions that are designed to help them for something like relapse or return to drug use because they said they're showing them tough love. Well, I'm telling you this, you're killing them. And I would appreciate it if you would stop. He said, okay, we can kill our way out of this. We don't have to worry about Brooke anymore, right? She's dead, right? We can kill our way out of it. Guys, we can't kill our way out of it. Who's that other person on the right? That's Miss Ava. I've already told you that addiction is genetics, trauma, and opportunity. That child is 2 years old, so let's look at her slot machine. Genetics, mom and dad both were drug addiction. Her first 7 is on the pay line. Trauma, she'll never know her mom. She'll never know how tough her mom was. And her dad's in prison secondary to his own drug use. Her ACEs score is already 2, and she's only 2. If we don't give this child the help that she needs going forward, what's the chances she's in our system in a decade? They're about 100%. And that's where we got to start talking about prevention, and we got to start putting systems of care that are designed to catch kids like this so that they don't go down the same roads that some of us went down and some of us didn't come out well on the other side. I'm more than my ACEs score. I stepped into a system of care that was designed to put me here, and that's where I am. This is my family. We're in Florence, Italy. I grew up in Jonesboro, Tennessee. If you ever told me I'd take my family to Florence, Italy, I thought you'd lost your mind. I couldn't even pick it off a map. But there we are. That's my son, Heath, my daughter-in-law, Laura, my wife, Karen, me. But I want to talk about the girl on my right. That's my daughter, Haley. That's where all my money goes. All right. Now, I'm a firm believer in the old double standard. When it was time for Heath to go to college, he needed to go. It was time for him to get out of the house. I love him, but he needed to go. Haley, completely different story. I told Haley, I said, Haley, if you'll stay in your bedroom and live there the rest of your life, I'll pay for everything. You'll never have to pay for anything your entire life. She didn't go for it, and she drug that thing on the right home. His name is Sterling. So on their first date, I'm sitting on the front porch waiting on this kid to show up. He pulls up in my driveway in a car. There's no way I'm letting my daughter get in. And I gave him my car that night. I didn't know him from Adam. And I talked to him for about 5 minutes. I went in and told my wife, I said, Karen, I think I met our son-in-law. She goes, oh, come on, Steve. This is our first date. 7 years later, I'm standing at the end of a long aisle in Charleston, South Carolina. It cost a fortune. And I've got Haley on my right arm, and she's getting married. And I'm crying. I'm a mess. It was ugly crying. And she laid her head over on my shoulder, and she said, Daddy, you're the first man that I ever loved. Thank you for everything you ever did for me. And guys, that day got better in a hurry. Right? It got better in a hurry. Standing there in that moment, I knew I was a turtle on a fence post. Haley's never seen this talk. She didn't even know I used this picture. I was a turtle on a fence post. I got to stand there at one of the most important moments of my life because somebody stood in for me and got me the help that I needed in the system of care to put me there. And I think that's all what we're charged to do, to make sure that we do the exact same thing. I will tell you this. That was a great moment, but when they come over to stay all night with Karen and I still wish they would sleep in different beds, and they still don't. So it's kind of dealing with that, and I'll deal with it on the way home again today. My son Heath, I told you I was glad when he left. I miss him, and I love him to death. He played baseball at the University of Tennessee, and he's got 100 buddies. When he got married, he came downstairs, and he said, Dad, he said, called me Pops. He said, Pops, would you be the best man at my wedding? So guys, the 2 most important days of my life were the day I stood beside my daughter and gave her away, and the day I stood beside my son as the best man. It wasn't my medical degrees. It wasn't all the stuff that's happened in my life. It was those 2 days. And I was there because I was a turtle on a fence post, because I had this system of care that was around me that put me there. It's the same thing you guys are doing here. Now, I will tell you that this used to be the end of my talk, and I would bow and we'll take questions. I now have one more slide. All right. Heath is way up on my list, by the way, because he gave me this, okay? This is my granddaughter, Cecilia. We call her Cece. She's now 9 months old, and I get to be a granddad. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that wants to go on watching things not be put in place and these kind of things not be allowed to happen. Not everybody's going to get their own Hulu series, right? I've fallen backwards into more things than you can think of. Hulu series is not important. What is important is the dad that I've got to be and how I've got to watch my family grow. And that all happened because somebody stepped in and advocated for me when I was unlovable. Okay, when I was unloved, and I really was back then, but stepped in and advocated for me and put me here today. And with that said, I'm done, and I'll take questions. Thank you all. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, I think, I was going to say, I think I did pretty good.
I think you did good. I think you did real good. Let's give him one more round. Okay, we're going to take a few questions. We don't have time for a lot of questions, but we do have time for just a couple. Raise your hand if you have a question. Star.
That's a good testimony. You did good.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was good testimony. Congratulations. You did great.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, there's some back there. I can barely see with those lights. They're pretty impressive.
I have a question. What would you recommend as a painkiller? Because I know opiates are so addictive, but like my son had his bone removed and he was crying hysterical, but he was refusing to take opiates because he was afraid of addiction for no reason except for that I've pounded his head, never take drugs.
Yeah, those are the things that break my heart, right? Because they're made for a reason, and they're made for reasons just like that. So you'll never see me up in front of an audience saying that we need to get rid of them. We don't, because they are life-changing for the people that they help. And we need to be more responsible with our prescribing and give people informed consent and make sure that we're following them. So if they start to go down any of those trails, we can help them before they get in bad shape. But I would absolutely recommend opioids in that case. You just have to look at what the risk and benefits are. I will tell you that this one's liable to some toes here. For a lot of things, they're not needed. Say dental procedures. If you look at dental procedures and other procedures, ibuprofen 600 milligrams twice a day along with extra strength Tylenol twice a day have been shown to be as effective as 10 milligrams of morphine. So anytime you can get by without them, it's a good idea. But some cases are so severe that they're absolutely needed, and we do not need to restrict access to them at all. I'm sorry, you should get you.
I'm curious to know if you can share anything about addiction specifically as it correlates to people with intellectual disabilities, autism, ADHD. So in other words, how does what you're talking about intersect with the family dynamics that have brought many and the loved ones that have brought many of us here today?
The first two I can't because I don't have anything to cite. I know what my suspicions are. The ADD I for sure can. And it's an elevated risk, as you might imagine. A lot of times addiction is born out of self-medication for underlying behavioral disorders. I can tell you that when I first started, I didn't wake up one morning and think, hey, I think I'll throw, $250,000 worth of medical education down the drain. That wasn't my goal. I was suffering from anxiety, depression, PTSD, and I've had ADD since I was a small child. And so I'm sure half the audience has already diagnosed me. That's okay, right? But those things put me at elevated risk to misuse controlled substances. Now, if I break my femur, do I deserve to lay there in pain and not be treated with an opioid? Absolutely not. but you have to assess my risk. And my risk because of those things are elevated, so there needs to be some safety guards put in place and open informed consent, which does not happen, as you well know. So it is an elevated risk, and it's based on those behavioral components. Does that mean we need to withhold it in all circumstances? Absolutely not. But it does mean that we need to go into it with our eyes open with appropriate informed consent. I'm sorry, the gentleman back there's had his hand up, and I can see him. I can't see anybody else. Oh, we'll get to him. He'll get to him.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Just real quickly, I have a son that has epilepsy as well, and he's on a bunch of medications for that, and now we're looking at the medical marijuana as a treatment. And should I be concerned about that and addictions?
Well, first of all, cannabis has been shown to be effective in this population, and that is a fact. And so I think that there are circumstances where it has to take a back seat, right? And when you look at cannabis, and there's all kinds of, half the states have it legalized now. I don't think Florida is the one that has recreational, but I do think medicinal marijuana is legal here. Medicinal marijuana is not legal in Tennessee, but I think that it needs to go through the same process as everything else for the FDA's approval. And I think that there are circumstances where, you put the risk of addiction on the backside because the benefits are so great. And that's always been the way I've looked at it. The story that the first woman, she talked about with her son, he was scared to take in the opioids because of the risk of addiction. And those are the ones that break my heart because it's there for a reason. And in that population, it is absolutely the drug that's indicated. And now you have somebody that's putting themselves through unnecessary pain because they're scared of it from that standpoint. We've done a poor job at balancing this out. So for your son with the refractory seizures, I would definitely look at it, and I would put that on the back burner. At least be my advice. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What happens when that person is your family? What do you do when that person's your family? Like with my personal story, my brother was Carly, the last of my family. I'm the last of my family. And I'm the daughter in that story. I'm the collateral damage that was left behind after he died. After I found him, I walked in his room on July 9th of 2020 and found him dead. Yeah. Because he decided to do that in the middle of the night while I was sleeping 50 feet away from him without telling me. The last thing that I told him was that there was pizza in the oven. I told him something about dinner because I bought dinner that night. Right. It was Hungry Howie's. I bought dinner that night. We did it every week. That was what we did. What do you do when that person's your family and you're the last, you're what's left behind, and you've got no one. You've got no family. You've got nothing. What do you do? So the first thing is, I'm sorry you had to live through that. And then you become homeless after that too. Like your entire life crashes after that. You become homeless. You live in a van for 3 years. Right. What do you do? So you can't. I've learned this in the last 20 years is I cannot change somebody else's behavior, but what I can do is I can provide an avenue for them when they're ready. And that's what I can do. And really, that's all any of us can do. We're not in control. We'd like to think we're in control of our kids around here today, but we're really not. And so realizing that, and I can't change somebody else, I can try to provide an avenue. Hey, here's what I see. I love you. And when you want to do something about it, here's some things that we can do and that I'll help you with. And in your case, you didn't have that. And you look at it and you say, how in the world can you take something that you know could kill you? And everybody in the room knows the answer to that right now. Because when you're addicted, you lose access to the part of your brain that gives you that kind of insight. Well, so your relative was sick, really sick, end-stage sick. He said it was better than anything. It was better than anything. And he was chasing it. It was.
It's, and I'm sorry, I can hear it in your voice, but it is the thing that makes this so painful. Because my bet is there's a lot of him that really wanted to quit, but it was better than anything that he'd ever had in his entire life, and he couldn't. And I get that. The thing is,
it's the trauma. I can't get it out of my head. It's like every night I still have this trauma's still here. Yep. Because I have the what if every single night. And I have some nights where I hope I don't wake up and I go and see him. Right. I know what I know what you went through. Because I'm not even an addict, and I'm doing it. I have that problem.
I'll tell you what I tell all of my families when I'm dealing with this. The thing that any of us can do is get help ourselves. And that's what I would put in front of you is is to reach out for somebody that can help you deal with the aftermath, because that's what you're going through right now.
I've been trying for 3 years. I get platitudes, I get excuses, I get I'm sorry, and I get no help.
Yep.
I was on the news on Memorial Day because I was down at the VA cemetery. That's where both of my parents are buried. And I tried to talk to the congresswoman down there about it because I'm homeless too. And what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. And those are the things that, when we get politicians in the room, these are the things that they need to know, because the story that you've just described is the system of care that I'm talking about.
Yeah, my brother was the only one left. That was my support system. When he died, my entire life crashed. You're exactly right. All of this is about money. It's not about people. Russell Brand is right. It's about people. It's not about the money you can't.
It is. And I for sure hear, well, you're right. I for sure hear your frustration. It's why I do my talks the way I do them. The first part of the talk is educating you about addiction, but the last part is always about people, because we want to put the people out there so that the people who are making decisions will know we're talking about real lives here. And the only thing that I can do to tell you that I would do if I was you is to advocate with that in mind, exactly like you have with me, and draw it out. Don't use statistics, use real people in your life and your story. It's what I try to do every day.
That's part of my. I need a guy. He sleeps above my head every night in a box. I need some help. I want to see you after the show.
Thank you, Dr. Loyd. Thank you. Star. We're going to ask. We got one other minute. We're going to work with Dr. Loyd for one other thing, and then he's going to spend some time down at the table, taking pictures, talking to you all until he runs out of energy. Okay? So don't leave. He's going to do it, and then we're going to. Before we close our program, if you're in the room, remember, we are going to do our door prizes. We also have one special guest. So, Dr. Loyd, don't go anywhere. You got him. Okay. Let me get them. You ready? Are we doing this now, David? Did I do this right? Yeah. Are you going to present it? Okay, do you know the story? Whoops. Okay. Tell the story. Okay, I want to. If you've been to the Family Café in the past few years, you know the story of the rose. You know what we do with roses and why we do it. But I'm going to repeat it here, and I'm going to tell you all, along with Dr. Loyd, the story of the rose. As you know, we've done something good. You've done something good when roses came to your door as an advocate. So I'm going to share the story with you. And we all know who Justin Dart is, right? Dr. Loyd, do you know who Justin Dart is? I think you better come up here. I'm going to have to keep turning around. Yeah. Okay. Do you know who Justin Dart is?
I do not.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little. Justin Dart is the godfather of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Talking about advocacy, he, along with Judy Heumann and others, helped create a system of care back in the days that there wasn't. They crawled up the steps of the Capitol. They created an environment, a community where we all could get started. Justin Dart did not make it to when the ADA was passed in 1990. However, his wife, Yoshiko, found out about our event and allows me to share this story with you, which I'm going to read from what she approved. Justin Dart was a great leader of the international disability rights movement and a renowned human rights advocate, widely recognized as the father of the American with Disability Acts and the godfather of the disability rights movement. Through the end of his life, Justin Dart remained dedicated to his vision of a revolution of empowerment. When Justin Dart knew that someone had accomplished a great feat or had done a great job, he sent them roses to let them know how much he appreciated them and needed them to lead on. You knew you did a good job when roses came to your door. We thought this was a great way to recognize folks who make a difference here at the Family Café and to carry this tradition forward. We want to recognize your good work and honor Justin Dart's commitment to the people with disabilities. And today we'd like to present roses as one of the folks that make a difference within the community, both and to thank them and to encourage you to help us carry on and to lead on. We say now to you, Dr. Loyd, thank you for such a good job. Thank you for your caring. And in the words of Justin, there is nothing I have accomplished without reaching out to empower others. As appreciation for what you have done for truly a good job, we want to present you this roses. Your kindness will not be forgotten.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, guys.
I cry out to you from the depths of my being. Humanity needs you. Lead, lead, lead the revolution of empowerment. Justin Dart. So thank you, folks.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, no, you're great. Thank you. Thank you. That's the first time I think I've ever.
Are we ready? Okay. Yeah? Yeah, so as we're waiting, I see, who do you see back there? You want to introduce him, David? Yeah, he's back there. Go ahead. He's right back there. I see him. You want to introduce him?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Ask him to come up forward.
Well, we have a esteemed guest here that's going to speak to us a little bit today. We've got Senator Rick Scott, who has really been a champion for disabilities and healthcare all of his life. We're very, very honored to have Senator Scott here with us. Okay. Good afternoon. I guess it's afternoon. So first off, it's nice to be here. So it's always wonderful to see each and every one of you. It's always nice to get pictures with as many of you as possible. So here's my job. My job is to help you. That's my whole job. Just remember, I can't do anything if you don't tell me about it. So I have 9 offices in the state. I have wonderful people here in, I've got a wonderful team here right in Orlando. I've got another team in Tampa, Miami, all over the state, Tallahassee, Pensacola, Jacksonville. So if you need something, anything about the federal government, let me know. I do a lot with, you wouldn't believe all the issues. Every federal agency. And so that's one. Number 2 is, if there's any ideas you have for legislation or appropriations, or if there's a grant program that you're interested in, I will do everything I can to be helpful to you. But just always remember, I cannot solve a problem you don't tell me about. So you're not going to hurt my feelings by telling me about it and bugging us. We'll tell you what we can do and what we can't do. But I hope every one of you is doing well. It's always nice to see each and every one of you every time I get to come. And my wife wishes she could come. She couldn't be here today. But the time she's come, she's enjoyed it also. So, but call me. I love each and every one of you. So take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
So I woke up this morning and I saw some really great TV coverage. And there's a new commercial without him, and he ends up falling in a pool. It was cute. So I hope you all go and see it and recognize that was Senator Scott there. At this point, I'm going to see if our friends will come back up. David, Nestor. Okay. Now, we're going to get ready for our door prizes. We're going to ask Dr. Loyd to go over there, and you all can have some conversation with him. I'm going to ask. Whoop, okay. So he's going to spend some time over on this side of the stage, and hopefully he'll stay as long as you all would like to talk to him. I encourage you. It's a wealth of information. Let's give him another round of applause. So if you haven't gotten your raffle ticket now, I encourage you, I'm going to leave it open for like 30 seconds until they bring me the raffles. Does anybody not have a raffle ticket? Oh, Anthony, fantastic. Okay. Your raffle tickets were given out, and also the T-shirts today were given out to you all by the Florida Youth Council. That's youth live throughout the state. There's 18 or 19 of them. Ages, and there are our upcoming youth leaders, ages 15 to 30. I encourage you all to go to their booth, sign up for the 17th Annual Youth Summit. That is youth only, youth led, that will be held the first weekend in August. Youth only, youth led. Okay, your parents drop you off, the parents come pick you back up at the end of the night so you can go sleep, you go back. Also, tonight, right here in this room, dance party, 7 to 10. You're gonna love it. You gotta come back. We've got a DJ dance party, all ages, all stages. Okay, right here. If you have not, you had some questions that came up to you, and you didn't get to speak to any of our keynotes or any of the state agency folks, that's what these pink cards are for. Each one of you have a pink card in your bag. If you don't have one, can't find it, go to the registration desk and fill out the pink cards. They're along with your report cards. These pink cards, the questions are submitted to us. We type them up and give them to all the appropriate people, and they will be answered, and you'll get a copy of all the answers in your mailbox at home, somewhere in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, okay? So we all know you have questions, you have suggestions. This is the way to do it, okay? Thank you so much. Now, are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All
I'm
right.
ready. I'm ready.
Shake them up. Good job. Pull one out, and the winner gets Lucky.
And the winner is 770-0736. I'm going to repeat it. 770-0736.
Well, that means I get to keep it.
Should we go to the next one? Let's go to the next one.
David, you want to hit this? Is heavy.
The next ticket is 770-0830. Yes, come on up, yes. It's a beautiful Yeti.
Okay, now we have these two. You'll have to describe what they're winning. You do one, and then you do
We
the
have
other.
another Yeti here.
I know, that's the last
Oh,
one.
that's the
We
last
start
one.
with the
Okay,
big bag,
all
and
right.
we end
With the big
bag.
bag,
That's
good.
right. And we do chopped liver in between.
Perfect, okay. Well, the next prize is a battleship toy, and the number is, it's beautiful, 770-829. 770-829. There we go. Oh, wow. You're gonna love that. The next one is a Bop It game, and the number is 770-0466. 0466. Okay, we're going to move on. Find another number. Oh, it's here. Perfect. Come on up.
David, where are you going?
Where are you going, David?
David, no, that's him. You're next, David.
Now, yes, now we have the Cafe Color Yeti, which is a beautiful ice chest. And the number for that is 770-0444. 44, oh, we. Awesome, we did them all.
Okay. You want to thank them and send them on their way? That concludes our program. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That concludes our program. And I really want to thank all the volunteers and all of the folks that really put this event together. It is really the best event in the country. Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping us,
Oh,
sir.
no, it's my pleasure.
Yes.
Anytime. I wish you would have seen what Jeb texted me today.
Really?
On how proud he is of you.
Oh, good. You know, you tell him I invite him every year.
And he never comes.